Wow, so you are as dumb as you are blonde, teased Margaret. Hey, guess what? Cindy said. Then she whispered in Margaret's ear, me and Tommy did bang bang last night. Margaret frowned. Bang bang? She asked. Yeah, silly, she said. You know, when a man puts his willy in me and we do bang. She giggled. It's really naughty, but it's where our babies come from. So we can still do sex. Now that is something good at least, but isn't it bad? Asked Margaret. Nah. She said, it's just some fun. Giggles. See, I invite him over for a play date and his mummy said yes, so there we are in my playpen when we got naked and bang in the playpen. Without protection. Protection? From what? She giggles. Margaret sighed. Guess there's different rules. Then a guy wearing a sailor suit came over with a perverted face as he giggles. Boobie police, he said, have to see your boobies. Margaret scoffed and about to tell him to buzz off when Cindy pulled her shirt over her head and exposed her bare breasts. Margaret stared in shock as Cindy started giggling like an idiot as the perverted guy started drooling and touching her breasts. He then turned towards Margaret. Get lost, shithead, as she said. The guy started to cry as he waddled away. Cindy gasped as she whispered, was that a bad word? Margaret nodded, which Cindy giggled. They spend more time drawing in books when the daycare workers, who are children aged 10 to 12, started checking their diapers. Margaret of course feels violated as a child shoved his hand down her bum when a young girl came over holding the hand of the sailor guy. Okay, which one of you dumb adults swore? She said huffingly. Cindy quickly pointed at Margaret. Maggie said a bad word. Margaret felt betrayed. You bitch. She yelled, but the girl grabbed her ear and dragged her away. Margaret yelled in agony as the girl sat down and threw her over her knees. Oh, please tell me she's not going to. The buttons under her romper were unbuttoned as they were opened over her back. Next she felt her diaper ripping off her as it was discarded to the ground. The next thing she felt was a hard slap on her butt. Ow! She cried out as the girl continued to slap her butt cheeks. You are too old for words like that, she said with each slap to her butt cheek. Margaret cried out in pain as the girl spanked her ass so hard it's beginning to turn beet red. She tried to beg, but it continues. All she could do was cry. After 10 minutes she was stood up and stripped of her romper, leaving her naked. Now go stand in a corner and think about what you did, she commanded. Margaret nodded as she walked towards a corner, with everyone laughing and teasing her as she stood facing the wall, her red behind on public display. Margaret sobbed quietly as her red stings with pain. At least the diaper covered up some of my nudity, she sobbed as she wiped her nose on her arm. After 30 minutes of teasing from the adult girls, ass grabbing and slapping from the adult men, Margaret was led to a change table and placed in a new diaper, then dressed back in her pink romper. Good. I wish I could climb in a hole and die. She sniffed as she went back to her hammer and blocks. Then the workers open the back doors and ushers everyone to go play outside. Margaret waddles out and stared at the huge playground. It has slides, swings, spinning things, seesaws, toy houses and even monkey bars. Some men was laying under the monkey bars as each girl in a dress swing by. Guess anything turns them on, she then thought about Dave and wonder what could have happened to her hubby. Margaret sat on the swings as she watched the adult babies play, waiting for this day to end when Cindy, back in her shirt, waddled towards her. Hi Maggie. Sorry I told on you, she drooled. Margaret just huffed as she turned her head. Cindy started to sob. I'm sorry, please don't be mad, she pouted. Margaret sighed. After all, she is just a baby. Fine, I forgive people you, Cindy squealed as she sat on the swings next to her and started to swing. Hey, wanna play tag? She asked. Margaret hadn't played that game since she was a child, and she does want to pass the time. Okay, why not? She smiled as she quickly poked her. Tag, you're it. She quickly ran off with Cindy happily chasing her. They played for a few minutes when more adults joined in, then they all played hide and seek, duck duck goose and ring around the roses. Margaret couldn't deny she was having fun when the workers bring them back inside for lunch. She soon found herself in a huge lunchroom, sitting in one of the adult high chairs like the other adults with a bib being tied around her neck. A little boy sat in front of her with a jar of giant baby food. "Okay, here come the airplane," he cooed as he played around with the spoonful of baby food. Margaret's first thought was to refuse it, but her tummy says otherwise, so she opened her jaw as the spoon entered her mouth. She chewed in shallow as more entered her mouth. "Can't believe I'm eating baby food. I feed my daughter this stuff." She continued to eat and eat and eat until she was stuffed with baby food. The kid came at her with another spoon. "Please no more," moaned Margaret, shaking her head, but the spoon was forced into her mouth. Margaret sees little choice but to eat it. Margaret tried to keep her mouth shut, but the boy tickled her belly to make her laugh. Then the food gets shoved in her mouth. She feels like her belly is going to explode. Once the jars were empty, Margaret moaned. She was never felt so full in her life. She had her face wiped, her bib removed, and then let down from the chair and led through a door that leads into a huge room with cribs everywhere. Margaret was led into a crib and laid down, rubbing her big belly as she was locked in. She turned her head to see other adults being led into cribs. Some has both men and women sleeping together. Margaret tried to lift her head, but for some reason she was dead tired. She closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. Before she knew it, she was woken up by the sounds of crying. She sat up and looked around. She noticed that every adult is crying in their cribs. Margaret sniffed the air and noticed the combination of both shit and pee. "Great, looks like these children have a lot of diapers to change." She then noticed the mushiness on her sore bottom. She shifted her butt and started to sob. "Not again," she whimpered. Seeing no choice, she started to cry as well. The workers came inside as they each took 2 babies and changed them. Margaret was paired with a woman as they both lay on the small change table and had their diapers removed. Margaret stared at the mobile hanging over her as her butt got wiped. The woman next to her, a woman in her 30s with long brown hair and wearing a sundress, was gaping and giggling at the mobile atop of her. "What a baby!" She turned to see a diaper being slid under her as she was powdered, then taped snugly in the diaper. Once her romper was rebuttoned, she was led out of the playroom. Margaret played with Cindy for a little while when she noticed Sarah walking in the room. "Sarah," she called out, finally. "Hey mummy," said Sarah. "Come on, time to go home." She grabbed her hand as they walked out of the room, with Cindy waving goodbye. They say goodbye to the workers as they left and walked towards the car. "Guess what, Mum?" "What?" asked Margaret. "I got a surprise for you in the car." She giggles as they went to the car and opened the door. Margaret gasped as her husband was sitting in a big car seat, wearing Camp Scout clothes and laughing while he was playing with his toy keys. "Dave." She looked at her handsome husband, still with his curly brown hair and cute cheekbones, but dressed in a childish scout suit, with a big diaper under his pants. Sarah was driving as the parents sat in the back. Dave was sucking his thumb as he poked Margaret. "Maggie," he said, "how was daycare?" She frowned as she turned her head to the window. "It was fun, sorta." She could still feel the sting of her butt. "Hey, who wants to go to McDonald's?" said Sarah as she drove into the McDonald's parking lot. Dave giggled as Sarah started to unbuckle them. Soon Margaret found herself being strapped into a double pram next to her husband and being pushed into the restaurant. Inside was no different than the daycare. There were teenagers and babies being led by either children or elders. One teenage girl was in a pull-up doing a potty dance as her older brother was eating his Happy Meal. At one table there was a woman who looks like in her late 40s being carried by her 23-year-old son, who seems to be potty training. Margaret looked at the counter which Sarah is ordering food from the 12-year-old boy at the cash register. "Here's your meal, ma'am," said the boy as he handed over the bag. "Thank you," said Sarah as she pushed the parent outside to the playground set. "All right, Mum and Dad, eat up then you can go play on the playset," she said as she put them into high chairs. Dave started to eat his Happy Meal while Margaret just opened hers. The burger was big enough for her, that's for sure. She started to eat as it could be the only proper food she will have for a long time. She ate and ate like a pig, savoring the burger in her mouth. "Whoa, slow down there," laughed Sarah as she grabbed a napkin. "Don't want to make a mess on your pretty romper." She wiped Margaret's face as she went to her meal. Once they finished their meals, Sarah took them out of the high chair. "Okay, 15 minutes on the playground," she said, "then we go home, okay?" Dave nodded as he started to waddle to the slide. Margaret quickly followed him. "Maybe he knows where the black box is." She caught up to him on top of the playset as she poked his shoulder. "Yes, Maggie?" asked Dave. Davy. "Do you know where the black box is?" she asked. "Black box? I made a black box when I was a baby." Margaret's face lit up. "Where is it? I have to know." Dave just grinned. "I made it so long ago, don't remember where." Margaret frowned, then she got an idea. She shuffled closer while fondling with her straps. "Well, too bad, 'cause I'm feeling like I wanna get naked here." She unbuttoned the top and revealed her shoulder. Dave gaped at it, making Margaret giggle. "Still the shy prevent that I'm married. If you tell me where is it, I'll let you touch my boobies." She giggles as she dropped the top part, exposing her huge breasts. Dave started to drool as he poked one boob. "Well, I think it's in the box with my baby stuff," he said. "Sarah put it in the basement with the others." Margaret cheered. "Now all I have to do is find it, then I could have my life back." Dave started grabbing her breasts. Margaret was about to pull away when she feels a tingle. "Oh my," she started to drool. "Can't remember the last time he touched me like this." Dave laughed a bit. Then Margaret just went on top of him and kissed him. David started thrusting against her crotch, their diapers rubbing together, making them have the urge to strip the clothes off and do bang bang here on the playground. But Sarah pulled them apart and dragged them away from the playground. "What are you thinking?" she scolded as she buckled them back in their car seats. "You can't do bang bang in public. Maybe at the daycare, but people eat here." Margaret giggled as Sarah got in the driver's seat and drove them away. She turned towards Dave, who was looking at her and laughing himself. Margaret grabbed his hand and placed it on her diapered vagina and made it rub up and down hard. Soon Dave got the message as he continued with Margaret just sitting there moaning. Sarah looked back and noticed her father jerking off her mother. "Wow, you two sure are tingly today," she sighed as they drove home. Margaret keeps huffing as the plastic inside of the diaper rub against her bare vagina. "Faster, Dave," she moaned. "Faster, faster." Dave did just that. Then the car suddenly stopped as Sarah started to take them out of the car. Margaret was disappointed. She wasn't finished. After all, she was more turned on than she was before the black box. Sarah took the inside and stripped them of their clothing, leaving her and her husband wearing just their diapers, while Sarah put their clothes away. Dave crawled over to the living room so he could play with the toys, while Margaret stood up and walked to the basement. "The sooner I reverse this, the sooner I can grab my husband and fuck his brains out." Margaret got to the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. "Of course, I lock it so Sarah couldn't go down there." She walked towards Sarah's room. "But that means Sarah have the keys." She grinned as she entered her daughter's room. Sarah has just put on her sweatpants and shirt when she saw Margaret waddling in. "Damn it. She had to be in here."